A community is in mourning after a shocking crime against children. A Georgia mother is charged with 2 counts of murder after police say she put her 2 young sons in the oven and turned it on.
On October 13, 2017, the lives of 2 young boys, Keontae and Jacarter Penn, were tragically cut short in an unthinkable act of violence. Found lifeless in their apartment in southwest Atlanta, their mother, Lamora Williams, claimed she had returned from work to discover the horrifying scene. However, as investigators delved deeper, her story unraveled, exposing a chilling truth that shocked the community and left their grieving father searching for answers. Welcome to Urban Crime Stories. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and turn on all notifications for upcoming crime stories. Lamora's life was anything but easy. From an early age, Lamora faced challenges that shaped her into a person battling emotional and psychological burdens. Her father's passing when she was just 19 was a pivotal moment in her life. The loss left an indelible mark, and those close to her believed it was a turning point that brought on her long-standing mental health struggles. Lamora worked hard to move forward, seeking stability and happiness, eventually marrying Jamil Penn. However, their marriage was short-lived and the couple parted ways, leaving her to shoulder the weight of raising their children alone. By the age of 24, Lamora was a single mother to 4 young children, including 2-year-old Keontae Penn and 1-year-old Jacarter Penn. The demands of motherhood, coupled with her mental health challenges, created immense pressure. While Jamil Penn and her eldest daughter's paternal family provided some assistance, it was far from enough to alleviate the burdens she faced. Lamora was fiercely determined to provide for her children, working hard to create a sense of stability for her family. Yet, the sheer magnitude of her responsibilities, combined with her struggles, left her overwhelmed. Family and friends described Lamora as a woman who deeply loved her children, but was often consumed by the overwhelming nature of her circumstances. Her mental health struggles were no secret to those around her, and many expressed concerns about her ability to cope. Despite this, Lamora pressed on, trying to balance the demands of single motherhood and her personal battles. On October 13, 2017, Lamora's life took a devastating turn. On that day, she committed an act so tragic and unimaginable that it sent shockwaves through her community and the wider world. What occurred was a culmination of years of unresolved trauma, mental illness, and a lack of sufficient support. The events of that day were not only tragic but deeply disturbing, leaving those who knew her stunned and grieving. Friends, family, and even strangers struggled to make sense of how a mother could reach such a breaking point, and the tragedy prompted difficult questions about the pressures and isolation faced by parents in similar circumstances. On that tragic day, Lamora made a chilling call to 911, claiming she had returned home from work to a horrifying scene. She told the dispatcher she found her 2 sons dead inside an oven at her apartment in southwest Atlanta. During the call, Lamora alleged she had left her 3 young sons with a cousin who was acting as their caregiver while she was at work. Her voice was filled with panic as she pleaded with the dispatcher, saying, "This is so serious. I'm so scared. I don't want to get locked up because I was at work." Lamora repeatedly expressed fear about being blamed for their deaths, stating, "I had just came home from work. This is not my fault." Despite Lamora's claims, investigators quickly began to doubt her story. Authorities determined there was no evidence to suggest the children had been left with a caregiver, as she had alleged. Family members supported the investigators' skepticism, revealing that Lamora had been struggling with undiagnosed mental health issues for years. They described her as overwhelmed by the responsibilities of raising 4 young children with limited help. Her long-standing struggles with mental illness and the mounting pressures of single motherhood appeared to have culminated in an unthinkable tragedy. The following day, Lamora Williams was booked into the Fulton County Jail. According to the arrest warrant, investigators concluded that Lamora had killed her sons by placing them in the oven and turning it on before making the 911 call. The tragic sequence of events began to unfold further when Jamil Penn, the children's father, recounted the devastating moment he learned of their deaths. Jamil said that Lamora had video called him, showing the lifeless bodies of his sons. He watched in horror as she panned the camera around the room, revealing the aftermath of what had taken place. Jamil was overcome with disbelief and immediately contacted the police, desperate for answers and justice. Before calling Jamil, Lamora reached out to a longtime friend, Nisa Smith. In a distraught state, Lamora told Nisa over the phone, "I can't do it no more." Smith recalled trying to calm her down, urging her to call the police. But as the conversation continued, Lamora confessed to her friend that her sons were already dead. Smith said, "I told her, call the police, Mora. Just call the police." Despite Smith's insistence, the gravity of the situation was already apparent, and it wasn't long before the authorities became involved. Jamil, still reeling from the horrific video call, was left devastated by the loss of his sons and struggled to process the reality of what had happened. He described his children as his heart and soul, adding that he could never have imagined such a tragedy. The events shattered him and raised painful questions about whether more could have been done to prevent this unthinkable act. The video call from Lamora, showing the motionless bodies of his sons, was a haunting image that would stay with him forever. As investigators pieced together the timeline, Lamora's actions painted a picture of a woman consumed by overwhelming pressure and deteriorating mental health. Her initial calls to both her friend and Jamil, as well as her conflicting accounts to the 911 dispatcher, highlighted the chaos and desperation surrounding the tragedy. The horrific deaths of Keontae and Jakarta left a permanent scar on all who knew them, sparking an outpouring of grief and raising questions about the circumstances that led to such a harrowing outcome. As the investigation into the case unfolded, more distressing details came to light. Just a month before the tragic incident, Lamora had quit her job, reportedly due to an inability to find a babysitter. This revelation, shared by her longtime friend Nisa, directly contradicted Lamora's claim that she had left her children with a caregiver on the day of the tragedy. According to the autopsy, the boys showed no signs of broken bones or blunt force trauma. However, the possibility of strangulation before being placed in the oven could not be ruled out. Their injuries were concentrated around the head and neck areas. Notably, Keontae's body appeared to have been partially pulled out of the oven, indicating some movement or disturbance after the heat exposure. The examiner concluded that the observed thermal changes were consistent with prolonged exposure to dry heat. These findings painted a harrowing picture of the children's final moments and raised further questions about the events leading up to their deaths. Throughout the investigation and subsequent trial, Lamora maintained her innocence, pleading not guilty to all charges. She continued to assert that she was not responsible for her sons' deaths. However, the weight of the evidence against her grew, and the trial progressed with the prosecution presenting a compelling case. After 2 weeks of deliberation, on Thursday, November 14, 2024, a Fulton County jury found Lamora Williams guilty on all charges, including 2 counts of murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, 3 counts of child cruelty, 2 counts of concealing the death of another, and a count of making false statements. The verdict brought an end to a case that had shocked the community and sparked widespread outrage. The court sentenced her to life in prison for the 2 murder charges, with additional sentences of 10 years each for 1 count of child cruelty and 2 counts of concealing the deaths. She also received a 5-year sentence for making false statements. In total, she was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 35 years, ensuring she would never walk free again. The ruling marked the culmination of a tragic and deeply troubling case that highlighted issues surrounding mental health, parental stress, and the devastating consequences of unresolved trauma. For the family of Keontae and Jakarta, the verdict brought a measure of justice, but the pain of their loss remained immeasurable. Jamil Penn, the boy's father, expressed his ongoing grief and heartbreak, stating that no sentence could truly account for the lives lost. What are your thoughts on this devastating case? Do you think the criminal justice system effectively addressed the underlying issues of mental health and parental stress in this case? How can communities come together to provide better support for struggling parents to prevent such heartbreaking tragedies in the future? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe and turn on all notifications for upcoming episodes. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I will see you on another episode of Urban Crime Stories.